And that is the record button because that is the way it works. And hello! How's it going? I am looking directly at the camera because that tells you that we are a professional program. And it's not just me this time playing Persona. This other weird person is my brother Joey, who has seen only a few anime back when we had this as a podcast on Anchor, which ended up falling off just because that is the way that podcasts work. So how's it going, Joey?
I'm good, but I would call myself at least a mid-level expert at anime now. I've watched 12 of them. That's got to fall somewhere in the mid category.
Yeah, you've watched the first season of JoJo's, so right there you are like, you understand at least what. Well, you don't understand what a stand is because we only watched season 1, but you at least know who Dio is. So
Yes, I do.
that's half of the anime fandom right there.
Plus, see, I was conveniently ready for this. I put this basically light from God right above my head, so it's right
See,
next to our lovely balance beam and scooter for my daughter and our ex.
see, and meanwhile, I
Welcome to
have.
my basement.
So this is the first time I've streamed at night, and I have all of this nice soft lighting. Granted, it makes me look like I'm 80 because of the way the light ends up hitting my face. But I have light back there, I have light in front of me, I have light everywhere in this four-season porch. But
One, I've been in that four-season porch. This time of year, you get daylight all around. So wait until the winter time when it is completely dark, and then we'll see how the lighting works. Same with down here.
yeah, but for everyone who has not seen Animesplaining, or listened to it for that matter, watched a podcast, what Animesplaining is basically it's very similar to a podcast that is near and dear to my heart. It's called Cinema Swirl. It's made by Kevin Mann, who started the Attitude Era podcast, How to Wrestling. He does a bunch of podcasts. But the main thing is that his buddy Sam Chaplin has seen many movies, so they watch a movie, critique it, go over it, stuff like that. So Animesplaining is that, but with anime, because for the most part, Joey has not liked this stuff.
I'm gonna say this mainly started as your pet project to torture me. This is what it started.
Yes, it started as some sort of cruel and unusual punishment while we were in the pandemic.
Why the first like 3 episodes are just what was it? It was whatever Speed Racer one that we watched was episode
It
2.
wasn't Speed Racer, it was Redline. But
Just as bad.
but we
Way
also
worse.
we also did Princess Mononoke, which you thought was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
It
did
was there.
movies at the start. We did like 3 Satoshi Kon movies as a or
Yep.
no, we did 2 Satoshi Kon
we all
movies and then
stabbed.
1 series. Cuz we did Paranoia Agent.
They were sad and depressing and sometimes nonsensical.
Sa- Satoshi Kon is perfect and I will not hear his name slandered. You can talk all the ill you want about Miyazaki. That's perfectly fine, but Satoshi Kon, watch it. But for this one, we did not watch a work by any of that. We watched, as you can see on the banner, Star Wars Visions Volume 2. We did watch Volume 1 back on the original podcast, back when they had things like from Studio Trigger, things like that. We had multiple people on it, and generally, like, overall, Joey, if we were to rate it on the 7-star system, which I do not remember what we gave it in the overall, but it was about like a 3-ish, right? It was kind of
Yeah,
meh.
2.5, 3, because it was more forgettable. Like I would maybe describe it as average, but it was probably even slightly below. Because on like you and I are talking however long later, like a year later, and we're just trying to remember all the episodes in season 1. And outside of the animation style, you really can't remember much of the stories.
Hey, I remember the shitty dubbing. Like those were some of the weirdest stunt cast dubs because you had like Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Tatooine Rhapsody singing very poorly.
Oh, I guess we do because yeah, we remember the bad animation from the twins. or at least
Well,
it's good animation, but the
yeah,
story is so stupid.
the
And
animation in
then
the Twins
the
was great.
terrible singing from Tatooine Rhapsody. That's right.
Yeah,
So
and
we remember the poor. We don't remember any good.
the other thing I remember is Project IG, which actually does a series that I'm currently watching. Um, did the Ninth Jedi, which I really wanted to see made into a series, and it hasn't been. So I am still holding my breath for that, and we'll get into a short here that is like a series, but in a bad way. But anyway,
But so this leads to one question though, because we've gotten into this discussion in previous, so we might as well renew it here over the video channel. Is this anime? Like I know they took a collection of stories from studios that are more global. So you have Chile, Spain, South Africa is the last one. So outside of probably the ones that's there's one from South Korea, which is actually one of my favorite ones, and then the one from Japan. So those ones you might constitute as anime, but would you constitute the other ones as anime because it's not from the Far East?
so I would say so, but I'm a radical when it comes to these things. It is that common joke that if tea is essentially just leaves in water, then effectively like runoff in a sewer is tea, and that is how I
Mojito is tea.
yes, that is how I feel about anime in general. But I mean, the South Korean team is the team that did Legend of Korra. There has already been a thing on if Avatar or Legend of Korra is anime. I fall on the spectrum of yes, it is. But in terms of just overall animation, there are only a couple that use the anime style as it is. But I mean, it's it's animated Star Wars is what I would say that Star Wars Visions is, and if you just say animated instead of anime, it makes it a lot easier to not run into that, like, how do I categorize this problem.
No, and I would largely agree with you because I mean, my first experience with anime is when you introduced me to the Animatrix, right? Back in 20 years ago. So there are still ones that don't use the traditional anime animation. You have one that's CGI. You have another one that's uh, some sort of different type of animation. That's not necessarily what you put into that average trope of where we put anime. So I don't think animations. I agree with you that animation style doesn't necessitate whether it's an anime or not. So I agree with you there. I don't know if it's just the style of storytelling is maybe more where it maybe falls into a difference, but largely I kind of agree with you. If it's there, it's a cartoon. You largely The Simpsons can be anime for all we. I mean, it's certainly an argument could be made for that.
Yeah, would you? So, the previous season of Star Wars Visions, since it was almost entirely Japanese animation studios doing it. So, and I wouldn't say that we only got that cultural lens. I think in general they just went to these anime companies and said, "Make us a Star Wars. Make us a Star Wars that's cool." And they
Mm-hmm.
kind of just left them like that. This seems to be at least a little bit more focused on the overall question was give us your culture's take on Star Wars. And I think it's
Yeah.
cleaner because of it.
No, and I think they hit an absolute home run. We talk about how, I mean, I said to you earlier, at least through episode 7, like this might be one of the better things I've seen since Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars related. And obviously, Disney has caught a lot of flack since they bought the Star Wars properties because not a lot of people have loved what Disney has done with Star Wars since. Like Force Awakens felt like a good kickback, but then you realize it's just a rehash of New Hope, and people soured on it a little more. There's a lot of mixed reaction on The Last Jedi by Ryan Johnson, and then of course The Rise of Skywalker was what it was. And then I mean, on top of that, you have the Han Solo movie, and some of the other series of Star Wars, which people are either very high on, or just seem like it's, it's more like fan service, like The Mandalorian or Obi-Wan or things like that. Whereas this truly feels like it's something original, and it's something that actually understands the project of what they're taking on.
Yeah, if I were to take all of the good stuff that has come from Disney utilizing the Star Wars property and throw it into a ball, that ball would have The Last Jedi, Andor, Rogue One, and this. And everything else, like, you can keep out of the ball for now and kind of do your own thing with it. But
I would agree.
yeah,
Because each one has like something that you want to pick out of it that you're like, I wish it wasn't in that movie. But there's, but I mean, and this has the same thing. There's a couple episodes there where you're like, well, maybe that was better in season one. But overall, like, I mean, the bottom line is, I guess we should ask, would George Lucas be proud of it? I think George Lucas would be proud of this.
yeah, I think so. I think the thing that George Lucas doesn't get enough credit for is sometimes just deciding to, like, go in a completely opposite direction than what people thought he was going to do. This is a person who, late in his career, decided to make an African American focused, like, World War II, like, airman movie, and it's good. So it's a thing.
Like the Tuskegee Airmen was George Lucas?
No, it was I forget what it was called. One second, I can look it up because I have Wikipedia in front of me. Red Tails. It was Red Tails.
Oh, I didn't know he did that. Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, and I just lost you. I'm getting you back. I just need to.
Right. You probably saw Ashley and Jace pop into the photo for 2 seconds here, so you could take a picture. Weird. But
yeah, so now we get to change the art. I'm going to start with the one I have the least to say about, and we can kind of go back and forth this way. But let's start with Al's song. I have so little to say about this. I think I made the mistake of kind of watching this one last because that's how it's set up. I think this is the AEW women's division match after like a trios elite match. It's like based on placement, you set this up for failure, I think. Because even though the one that preceded this, which is the Pit, is not great, it's still like such a change in styles and a change in tone that it just didn't grab me in the way that I felt it should.
no, I'll do you one better in terms of the wrestling reference. I would say this is you get the full on WCW show, and then there's the main event. So this is okay. Now it's time for Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan at Halloween Havoc. I guess it's not that bad, like this Owl's Tale, but it's kind of like, okay. I mean, Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan can only do so much at their age for the main event now. So whereas the rest of the show was so good, we had the cruiserweights, we had this, but now we get this match. And okay, so that's what it was to me. I mean, the idea, like, the Kyber crystals only react to her voice and no one else's, is kind of weird. But outside of that, and the other problem is you have the animation style, which does look cool, but we already saw it in episode 3, so you're not necessarily blown away by the animation as you would in the earlier one because you saw it in an episode earlier.
Yeah, it's I feel really bad, like, shitting on anything that is in this thing, but it's kind of the worst part of a large amount of good stuff, and it's still, I would still put it above like Tatooine Rhapsody. I would still put it above Toby. I would still put
I
it
wouldn't put it above Toby, but I get what you're saying. Like I'd put it. Would you put it in the middle of season 1?
Yeah, like in terms of the season 1 stuff, that I would put this like below Ninth Jedi, because that was the best one. I would put it below the starting one, the Samurai Sith one.
Then there's the Elder. The Elder was,
and I'd put it below the Elder. But aside from those 3, I think that like this is decently solid, where there's nothing necessarily like outright bad about it. It's just mediocre, and I have no idea how to make this better. I watched Where the Crawdad Sings yesterday as well, and that is a better movie inside a really bad movie. And you can point out so many different places where it's like, if they just kind of focus down on this would be better because of this. There would actually be tension in this really shitty movie. But in this case, it's like they did everything I feel like they wanted to. They did everything correctly, but it just feels
I mean, it sometimes movies just lose in the writing room. Like it's a story that maybe somebody sees and that they like, but you put it out to a wider audience and it's just like it kind of falls on deaf ears. Like you're so set that it's going to be so good, but I mean, I can play my high school like Spanish project videos that I still think are hilarious to this day. But if I play it in front of a group of friends that didn't know me in high school, and they'll watch me like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, I was never funny in high school. I can just say that. I was
only funny being helped by other people.
So that's Ao's song. We don't really have much to say about it. What would you like to move to? Like, what is foremost on your mind that you want to talk about?
I guess, I mean, going down the line, like the only other one that's kind of like meh to me is The Pit. But The Pit, like, one, and I wanted to like it more, is because I like Daveed Diggs, who does the English dubbing of the main male protagonist. And I like the idea of, like, you know, digging the lithium mine to power this huge city that's inside. I like the idea of like showing how truly evil the Empire is, because they just do the Imperial thing, come in, take over, and do not have any regard for any kind of life that might be on the planet, or any life in regard whatever or whatsoever. So I like that. In the made me a little sad. I thought initially Daveed Diggs' character was the brother of the little girl that we see in the beginning, but learn that's actually her dad. Makes it a little more sad when you learn what happens throughout the episode. But I mean, it's a little more slow moving than the rest of it. Doesn't always make sense. It's cool the chant somehow spreads to the townspeople, and they kind of overtake the stormtroopers, so the stormtroopers just leave. And then she's force sensitive at the end, which I was supposed to give you hope for her future. It was just like, that was the only one where they really felt like they could probably use at least another half hour to tell the story that they wanted to tell, or they just didn't know what story they wanted to tell.
Yeah, this needed like a DC movie run length. This needed a full 80 minutes to...
Don't say DC movie. I want to see The Flash.
No, that's 2.5 hours long.
Turning me off to The Flash.
I mean the DC animated stuff. So this would be like your Doomsday War and stuff like that, where you get your 80 minutes and that's it. Hard cut off. You can't go longer than this. unless you're the Dark Knight Returns, in which case we'll split that up into 2 separate 80-minute movies. Anyway,
Hey, in DC's defense, they have that formula down because most of their stuff is good. Occasionally, you get some trash, but most of it is pretty good.
yeah, what I like about the Pit, you kind of went with it, is so the some of the projects in this season do menace really well. The general stormtroopers and the general empire as it stands, I would argue, don't really feel all that menacing at this point. They can't shoot anything. They're just a bunch of dudes in white armor. And even in something like the Spy Dancer, the Empire is meant to be shown as this menacing thing, but at the end of the day, there's this like dancer who's just literally dancing around in circles on them. This made it feel like this is something to legitimately be afraid of, and I like that. I do like the time lapse of like showing this mine as it's gone on and showing as this city kind of grows in the background. I like a lot of parts of this, but yeah, the overall production as it stood probably just needed more time in order to finish up, rather than just having a hard cut at 20 minutes so we do like 3 things all at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That leads to like the Spy Dancer, because I think that's a good tipping point to move off of, because now you're pointing out you're right, whereas that one, she's kind of dancing circles around it, and they're kind of like made to look more buffoonish. Like how has she been so successful at basically being a spy for this long? But the tough one, the ending to that is pretty good to me. Whereas you did the reversal of Luke and Darth Vader, whereas Luke finds out that his father finally finds out who his father is, and he's this ultimate evil. Whereas now you have the son, who's a part of this ultimate evil, learning the truth that he wasn't born into this. So that part I really did like, but you're right. The whole rest of it is like, like they're dancing around. Who is the other? I thought initially the one other female character in it was actually the daughter. I guess not. I guess she's not the daughter. She's just somebody that this spy works for. The menace in it. I mean, you have that droid. That droid is pretty cool. It's just rip the other droid apart. But other than that, yeah, like it's. I mean, the whole middle of the episode feels forgettable, but then the ending hits really, really, really well.
Yeah, I think that this is like, if the overall idea is like, how does your culture do a Star Wars? This is definitely French. This is the French Star Wars. This has French coming out of its ears. And the previous one, I think this kind of deals with. Previous one is kind of just an up and coming like anime studio based in Japan. That's art something. Let's grab it because I literally just had it in front of me. Dart Shijo. It's like 3 consonants in a row. I am very bad at this. I'm very bad at my job. But yeah, this one.
Which studio are you talking about for which episode?
So, the first one we did, which was Ow's Song, is Triggerfish, based out of South Africa. The Pit was done by Dart Shaitjo.
Or Dart Chacho.
Yeah. I'm bad at pronunciation.
And then this is this Spy Dancer's Studio La Cachette.
Yes, and they've done like Primal. They've done big things. So this is like,
oh, really? Okay.
This is like in the heavy hitters is what the Spy Dancer is in.
What felt more French to you? Was it the storytelling of having like the spy in in like in the middle of this Imperial army, like a World War II story with like the Vichy French and things like that, or is it more the animation style where like when she's coming down and you see her dress like twirl all around and
Both. It's in the specific style. I've seen like French animation shorts, and it's very much of that style. But also just like the idea of resistance while still like putting on an air of normalcy while you're occupied seems rather a French idea, or a modern French idea that they've gone back to in media and things like that. So I, I think that this is probably in the top three for me, of where this actually ended up, because I like it more than Sith, for instance. I think Sith ultimately kind of fell flat for me because the only thing that has going for it is its animation. Um, so yeah, I think this is sort of tied for my number three spot, probably between this and the Wallace and Gromit company that did I Am Your Mother.
this is up. I would say I Am Your Mother's probably a little better, just because again, but the ending to this was probably top three, especially seeing like when you talk about Menace about the Empire, and again, like we see it during like the Empire was easily duped by what she's been doing for years, but then you see her son take his hat off, and you see that they've like basically try what's the word I'm looking
They
for?
filed his horns down.
Yeah, they felt like they denied him his identity, I guess is the word I'm trying to the word that I'm probably looking for is escaping me, but either way, like they've uh not tortured him, but they've yeah, exactly what you said. Like they made him try to look at what they deem to be normal. So I mean that to me is menacing. They denied him any kind of identity he might have had because they stole him as a child or as an infant. So no, that was really well done. I mean, then I mean, might as well move on to the Sith. The Sith, I agree with you. The Spy Dancer is better than the Sith. The Sith is probably of the nine, probably rounding out the bottom three. The animation is incredible. I will say that. Um, but sadly, the part that I remember the most, when they're arguing, I'm trying to go back to what period of Star Wars history it goes back to, but that's a wormhole you don't really need to go down because you always know there can only be two Sith at a time. So based on the stories, but the whole when she kills what I assume was her master at some point, and he kind of like fades into dust. Like I that was weird. Or the conveniently the one droid fights off the other two droids that are with this Sith master and just completely blows his head off. I was like, where was that at the beginning? Couldn't have just done that right away, recognizing that you're in trouble or in danger. But and then it was cool that the Sith thing is like takes the droid, just rips it apart. Like, oh, cool. You just did this incredibly cool thing, but this is how powerful I am.
Yeah,
So
what
again, but this would be in the top half at least of season one. But because this season is so good, it's just not there.
Yeah, this is right up there with Ronin, but much like Ronin, this feels like they wanted to put cool ideas on screen and not necessarily like something that was story focused. This feels like something that could be in the Netflix series Love, Death, and Robots, which I don't really like. Um, because in Love, Death, and Robots, it is very much like we are just showing what animation studios can do, and this uh, this studio is based out of Spain. They are very good at what they do. This is the most visually appealing, and I do see why you would want to put this first, especially if Ronin was your first one in the first season. But at the same time, the characters just didn't hit for me. I don't really like the kind of like trying to play it both ways, like your gray Jedi of just like, oh, I'm not Sith, but I'm not Jedi either. It's like, cool, you're a libertarian.
Yellow, like,
go fuck yourself.
Ouch. But I do get the I did get the like, okay, how is one side red and one side yellow? That's goofy town. Like, if you want to put it in for the animation, that's fine, but don't try to justify it in the story. Like I make my own destiny. I was like, cool, then the Sith died out, but we obviously know they didn't, so I guess you're just bad.
And the whole only two Sith at a time is silly. Like there's a ton of them. Like you can, it's if you're trying to bring in lore to this, let's talk about like Order 66. It's like they killed all the Jedi except these 80. Star Wars doesn't matter. It is about space wizards.
I like there can be only two Sith rule because they are so selfish, but the whole like, well, these ones aren't like the Grand Inquisitors. These ones aren't Sith, but they're Force sensitive and they have the same powers. Like, just call them Jedi then. Like, they're just dark Jedi. So, yeah, I agree with that. Like, that's again a lot of the problem I have with the modern Star Wars, where like you can be menacing. We've seen Jedi killed by just blasters. Like you can make the stormtroopers more menacing. You don't have to just make them foil. They're not the battle droids that we see in Episode 1. So we know that a collection of stormtroopers can kill a Jedi. Just leave it at that. They don't have to be killed by some Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah, so let's talk about a Sith with actual menace, but not the Sith with actual menace, because I'm going to save Screecher's Reach for the end. So let's talk about Journey to Darkhead. And
I like Journey. I like this one a lot.
Just an entire season of an anime put into 20 minutes. This fucker moved.
Oh, this was great. I loved this. This was, but you're right. Like, wow, how much this was like, I guess to compare it to like what we know in animation, it's like the first 5 minutes of Up, where they just tell you like the whole story of this guy's life in 5 minutes without saying words. That's what this was. The storytelling in this one was incredible.
Yeah. So this the animation studio that was their most notable thing, I think, is the Boondocks. And it's kind of funny because at the same time it's like, yeah, these look like Boondocks characters for the most part. But it's very good. I like their Sith Master. I like his big bladed tentacle thing.
Say that super tail. Like all of a sudden, like my master's going to like fight you off, and like, oh, I just pulled this random tail that just slaughtered you. Holy crap! And then like again, you see him without the mask, and then randomly while he's trying to explain this to this guy that he wants to make his apprentice, he just takes his mask off. It doesn't make it a big deal. Just all of a sudden, like there's the shot, like him in his face, and it lets you know, like, okay, I'm seriously trying to have a conversation with this person to try to convince them that my side is the way to go. And, so well, I mean, everything, like from the beginning of the elder telling the female lead in the beginning, like time is like war is these are things that you can't change. And even though she's constantly feeling like she needs to change it, she comes to that lesson in the end, while at the same time, because he renewed his hope from the path that he had taken from the Jedi sending him on this mission, it still lets her know, no, you still try to change things. Like, you might feel like these things are constant, but there's no reason to lose hope. I thought the message was good, the storytelling was good, the antagonist is probably the best part of this episode. but even their chemistry between the two leads in the beginning is fun. I mean, and it brings a little bit of I think levity is maybe the word I'm looking for, but you would know better than me, English major. So
No, levity is the correct word. It brings a little bit of humor. The weakness I would say in this is another one where I would much rather have this stretched out over a period of time than told completely in 20 minutes. Um, this felt like something that should have been a full season, and they just kind of give you the bullet points and just move on from there. And that's why this is like not higher. If this was an actual series, I would put it up there with like the Clone Wars, like original Gendy Taratovsky stuff. It's very very good. It's the vibes are good. The general feeling that it's going for is excellent, but man, just let this fucker breathe.
they so I mean one I assume we both put this ahead of anything in season one, correct?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Like I,
So the other question is because Disney is renewing Visions already. I've read that they're making a season three now. Whether they want to make it completely anime or different from what this season is, and more or less what season one is. But would you say that this episode, more than any of the other ones, would be ones that you would rather see into a season? Or are there other episodes that, because they're so good and also leaving you wanting more, maybe you'd rather see, like, I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but maybe like Screecher's Reach, would you rather see as a season more than this one? Or do you think Screecher's Reach made its point and this episode, Tales of the Dark Head, has way more to say?
the reason why I would say that, and this kind of a teaser for talking about Screecher's Reach, which we both agree is kind of the best one, is Screecher's Reach feels like the prologue to a really good season of television. This feels like the season of television, and that's not a good thing. I would want to see a season of Journey to Darkhead more than I would want to see a season of The Ninth Jedi from the previous season. So that was my high point last time. Um, but but overall, like if I were to say like, hey, give these guys a bunch of money, have them make a full season. If you have a limited budget, I'd much rather give it to the animation studio behind Screecher's Reach than this one, because it seems like there's more to say that, whereas this would just be like, here's the connective tissue between these bullet points that we already gave you in the 20 minutes.
And that's fair. I would say, because you're right, and that leads to a lot more questions. Like, they could have easily added, like, hey, how did this girl get from like serving in this temple all the way to the Jedi temple to tell him about this mission? Yet she's still not a Jedi. How'd she get there? And then what's this other dude's story? We got a little tidbit of it about like his old relationship with this Sith, but there's more to tell there. There's certainly that the Sith character is probably the most interesting in this, so you can certainly learn way more about him. So I agree with you that, golly, you could you could make this into at least 5 episodes and make it even better.
So, what do you want to do with the guys in the middle? Because we have Screecher's Reach that we'll save for the end, but we have three more to talk about in between that. We have I Am Your Mother, we have the Bandits of Goluk, and we have In the Stars. So, and all of those I would kind of consider. Well,
So
I'm Your Mother I really liked, but yeah.
I liked them all. We've already established we really do like them all. I would put Tales of the Dark Head above Bandits of Golak. Um, but I did like Bandits of Golak. The only my only critique maybe of Bandits of Golak is it's uh kind of similar to um the pit, where all of a sudden you learn at the end she's force sensitive, so you're like, couldn't you have done this earlier, or maybe like, or we led to believe like what does this leave her future? It's kind of the similar thing when the one Jedi that's already at that temple they come to at the end, and she opens up the hidden compartment that's under the pool. It's like, you probably couldn't have done this earlier, or at least like seek these people out earlier. Or the whole like, all of a sudden, my path leads us here, this path leads us here. So we're Screecher's Reach again. It goes back to Screecher's Reach because it's so good, but you have the trauma of Screecher's Reach where this girl's being taken away from her friends. Now all of a sudden you're adding the trauma of this young girl in the Bandits of Golak being taken from her brother, but she's falling on the good side being taken from her brother, even though it doesn't quite work well for Anakin Skywalker being taken from his family to go train it to be a Jedi.
So
as we learned from the movies.
So this is why I think the Pit is better than Bandits of Golak. The Pit, sorry, the Pit gave us a reason to care about the characters that were central to it. I don't think the Bandits of Golak did that work. I think they gave us a setting, and a really good setting, but the characters do not feel fully fleshed out. It's kind of like, here's a type, enjoy this type, and just kind
like
of go from
kids, there. Like they're just two kids on a train, and you just want them to stay out of danger because they're kids.
Yeah.
No, and I understand that because you're right. Like they get on the train and you realize like, yep, she's force sensitive and she can't always control it, or she doesn't always like use the best judgment because she's a young kid. And so the brother's trying to protect her. So yeah, I understand that. Like again, like, but you don't really know that much more about them. You don't know their history. Whereas an example like the episode 3, the water tower one, where they establish these two characters' history of like how they're still on this planet, what they've had to go through, and that you don't get that in this episode. And maybe that's also again the problem of the episode alignment. Whereas, like you said, like you try to start off, maybe you should have started off with the harder hitting or the lower hitting episodes, or start the bar much lower and let it elevate. But you don't know what the viewer's going to take to or not. But
yeah,
I agree with you. Largely, it does the whole time feel like two characters like, hey, just stay out of danger. But that's my only investment in you, is I just don't want to see you get hurt.
Yeah, would you have like switched the positioning of this with anything else? Like, I feel like this probably could have followed Sith. It's a little bit of a lighter tone than Sith, and it has not as good animation, but it's still good. The setting is very good. But I don't know. It feels like since this is so middle heavy in terms of quality, that this kind of faced the problem of just kind of being left by the wayside.
I mean, again, you followed. Look what it followed. You had 2, which was Screecher's Reach, which we're agreeing so far is the best one. 3, which is I think it's called the Water Tower.
No, the 3 is in the stars. That's the Chilean one.
In the stars, so, but they destroy a water tower. But yeah, like it's but in the stars is good. I Am Your Mother is so good. 5 is Tales of the Dark Head, or Journey to the Dark Head, which I loved. You liked. And then the one was the Spy Dancer, which we both liked, but we just had a different ranking. And then all of a sudden you follow those 5 episodes, which were all very, very good, with this, and it's good. It's better than the 2 that come after. Well, you're right. I'm probably on par with the Pit, I would say. I think the ending of this one is better than the Pit, so maybe that's why I'd put it slightly ahead. But I mean, they're both better than episode 9. So it's tough to even say. Would you rank this one better than the Sith episode?
No, I would not, because Sith did not have me. So my cynical brain was poisoned by Attack of the Clones, and I remember everyone being excited for Yoda pulling out a lightsaber in Attack of the Clones, and in this, when Grandma Lady pulls out lightsabers, I had the same reaction that I do now to Yoda pulling out a lightsaber in Attack of the Clone, which
feels like fan service.
For fuck's sake.
No, I'm the same way. I wish I was. I'm a Star Wars fan, but like Rogue One, where you have the Darth Vader scene where he cleans his house at the end of the movie, I'm like, this is just fans. This is a fan service video. This is a fan movie. Like, you realize like Darth Vader from the original trilogy wouldn't do that because he wouldn't waste his time. He was like, wow, I can just send stormtroopers to do this exact same thing. Let me go worry about these other things that a higher level officer actually has to do. It's just, yeah. So I largely agree with you. Cynical brain goes off. I'm like, no, that just seems like crap.
Meanwhile, this one broke my cynical brain because I legitimately got laughs from it. I Am Your Mother, like, I give clear points for it being really fucking funny. Like, I was expecting, like, oh, this is a little kid thing. This is the Wallace and Gromit studio. Yes, I like Wallace and Gromit shorts on occasion, but what are they going to do with Star Wars? Is this just going to be fan service? And I get, you know, evil rich lady acting the same as her mom, and everyone just kind of being a dork, and it's just wonderful. It's delightful. It's this put all of its stat points into charm, and I was charmed. So
the only reason why I probably don't put this in the top 3 is because what they did with Wedge Antilles. Like, I get it for the episode, it makes it funny, but like, sadly, cynical brain just asked, like, why is Wedge Antilles leading like a race for an academy when he's on the rebellion? And we learned that the rebellion still had to keep fighting the Empire after, and not as much that he's a goofball, because I mean that's fine. You can make Wedge Antilles a goofball, but it was more or less like, why is he leading like an academy and like putting himself on like a planet-wide or at least a city-wide broadcast on a planet when you're probably still fighting the Empire, right? And that just letting him know where you are. That was the only thing where my cynical brain was just like, okay, this is an issue, but the rest of it is fantastic. Like, I just love, like, oh, I don't want to race your outhouse. And then it pulls up and is like, oh, just seeing the mom's underwear just flying down. It's like, oh, it kind of is like an outhouse. Sad.
Yeah, I unfortunately have very little to say on it other than it's just fucking charming, and other than just like I'd just be repeating jokes from it, and that's not fun. That's not cool. Hey, do you want to see the jokes of this thing that were good except worse? So, but yeah,
no, I agree. Like, but I mean, would you say, based on like what we were talking about with like Journey to the Dark Head or later on with Creatures Reach, like this one felt perfect. Like, there's no more story to tell. Like, they did a perfect job taking over the 15 to 20 minutes that they had and telling the full tale of these two people in it with a good opening and a satisfying conclusion.
We just keep making pro wrestling references. This is the Sting match of this thing. It did what it needed to do. It did exactly what it needed to do. It did it perfectly, and it left. This is a veteran studio that like just did perfectly. It didn't really outshine any of the stuff that was like super like flip-de-doo or told these intense stories, but it did its job. It was a good place for where it was. I'd probably put this as an episode 3 if I keep Screecher's Reach where it is. Like, I would use this as kind of the come down from Screecher's Reach's ending.
Yeah, because you need like a little more happy.
But overall, I think that this did exactly what it needed to do.
I think placing it in the middle is good. Like, you like, again, like, breathe in some cheer as you like, okay, I got 5 episodes to go after this. That one was a lot of fun. It was kind of like a nice break. You don't have to pay like I watched the whole thing because I mean it's pretty easy to be engaged for 20 minutes, but all of a sudden if you wanted to like, not pay attention for a minute or two, you could still pop into this one and feel exactly where you are.
Yeah,
Like
I
it's
I could legitimately hear arguments for placing this literally anywhere. I could see it going first. I could see it going last. I could see it going literally anywhere in the middle, following almost any of these. So I think it's perfect for what it does. It is.
actually now that you say last, I would probably like this. This one probably would have been at best last. But
It's
maybe that's just because old song is so dumb.
it's
I,
it,
I shouldn't say it's dumb. It's again, it's because the rest of the season is so good, but like it's just the story is kind of goofy, and this one would have just been like it would have left me like that was fun. Okay,
yeah. It's
and
Stone.
now the season is
If it went last, it would just be Stone Cold Steve Austin against Kevin Owens. Is what it would be.
that's all.
Just go get. I'm going to make a like wrestling illusion counter for this. So
I actually like the Stone Cold Kevin Owens one. That one's good. It exceeded expectations, even though you went in pretty pumped up for it. Yeah.
yep. So before we get into the true winner we have in the stars here, um, probably the most interesting in terms of its animation. It's like this sort of
Oh yeah.
claymation. Reminded me of Studio Leica. In
With the gold,
yeah,
like what they show, like the plant life is gold, or the painting. That's what I was worried at first when she was talking about the painting. I'm like, oh, is this just another like episode like the Sith? Like, oh, let me work on my painting while the Empire is present. But then it, then they tell you this. They do the Dune level of setting setting the environment, which I like. You might not like it as much, but
so I know this is the first one that does this of the series. So I probably came out higher on it because it was first. But as I think about it, like this season of Star Wars Visions has what, 3 or 4 sibling stories? Like at the end of the day, I think 3.
let's see. Because Screechers Reach, it's just friendship. They're all
Yeah.
friends, right? I don't think any of them are siblings. But this one, uh, I'm Your Mother's a family story, but not siblings. During the Dark Hits, no siblings. By Dancers, no siblings. Bands of Galactus, so that's 2. The Pit is no. And
Yeah, we just
House
thought
Song is
we
no.
just thought the pit was a
There's a lot of like,
siblings.
there's a lot of like child either overcoming like the tragedy befalling a parent or a lot of child parent, and this falls into children following the tragedy of a parent that they explain in the beginning, because that's a lot like episode 8 is like that with the pit. You have the parent relationship in episode 9. Obviously for the spy dancer where we learn that one is the other one's parent. That and I Am Your Mother, which is another parent relationship, and then those ones fall off. But yeah, I mean that's about 5 episodes right there.
Yeah,
They
so
do this season does a really good job of setting relationships between characters
yes.
compared to
So I guess the question is like, where would you like end up placing this? Would you put this ahead or behind the pit? Because I think the pit is a better colonization story, but I think I actually like the
disagree. I
characters
think
more
this
in the
one
pit as well. So it's I don't know.
I I think the colonization story, I think this one's better because when you talk about establishing menace, the Empire has already taken over this planet and they've wiped out everything except these 2 characters. So, in terms of menace and what the Empire is capable of and the true evil that they are, this one to me best sets the tone compared to the other ones. Especially when you get like right from the beginning, you want to believe like this little girl's trying to like basically force push this TIE fighter, and the sister's like, no, you would let's not try that again. Like it adds the reality of what these two are going through. I mean, they're just trying to survive, just trying to get water. And so compared to the pit, I think that this story is better for what the true menace are showing what the Empire is capable of. The what the pit does better is the pit shows what the basically what the Empire is built off. They treat all citizens like trash. You see that better in the pit where there's like, oh, you're done digging? Cool. We're just going to leave you here to die. They do a better job of that, whereas basically it's implied in this episode in the pit they actually show it. But other than that, the menace and just the the general lack of compassion by the Empire, I think this episode did really, really well. But it has a more, at least a happy ending. You don't know where they're going to go from here. I mean, they still got to fight for water and do all this stuff. It seems like their planet's better, but I mean, so the ending is a little happier. But you realize this there's still more to go. This is another one where you probably could add a couple episodes later, but for what it was, this episode was probably what it needed to be and was still fun without you really needing more.
Yeah, this and like as I think about it, the kind of lower I am probably going to place this on my personal rankings. Um, it's one of those things where it's like it probably did like as much good as Bandits of Golok, but like I don't know. I like the characters more in this than I like them in Bandits of Golok. I like the story more, but I don't know. Just something's not quite sitting right. Where like I'm kind of just trying to place that middle in my head and just can't.
Like, would you put this ahead of Bandits of Golok then?
I think so. Like I
But
think
you
that
put the pit above this one.
yeah, I think like the pit might be like a number 6 and this a number 7.
See, this one might be in my top three. This probably starts my top three because I like this one this much. But I completely understand, like, again, where you're coming from with the pit stories, just depending on like what I mean. This episode is built on very similar to the pit. It's built on the danger that the Empire poses towards people in general, and it's built off that. So, and I will say I like the animation in this one better than the pit, just because it's very interesting looking. Like animation wise, this probably is my number two behind the Sith episode.
I have a soft spot for a very crisp like anime style, and the pit has that. So, between the pit and Journey to Darkhead, like sometimes I just like a pretty like generic anime looking thing, and
You're right, Journey. Okay. This one might be number 4. Yeah, maybe we'll put it at 4 because Journey to Darkhead's better. I Am Your Mother is better, and then we'll get into Screecher's Reach. But
yep, and might as well get into it now. I love Screecher's Reach's poster as well. But so I've read a lot of Irish folklore stuff because I got Bugbear in my head while I was in college, and the I think it is really really cool to basically have the Sith take the place of the Fae. They are this almost natural force of nature that exists kind of in the periphery of the world, and they will steal your children. And I really like that side of it. I do like how this feels like a quintessential like Irish telling of a Star Wars story. There is a Irish horror movie called You Are Not My Mother, which is sort of similar to this. It's on Hulu. but it's similar to it in that, like, basically, girl's mom disappears, and it replaces her with something that looks like her mom but isn't her mom, and it's a whole thing. It's it's really cool. It's a really cool movie. But aside from that, I like this animation studio. They worked on the Bob's Burgers movie. Bob's Burgers movie has really good animation. I know you hate Bob's Burgers, but I just wanted to make mention of that.
I mean, I just don't. It's not. It has nothing to do with this with the animation. It's more or less the story. I'm not. That's not my type of humor. That or The Office are just kind of like that awkward humor doesn't as much resonate with me. But it doesn't mean I don't respect Bob's Burgers for what they do. It's like people tell me I should watch Big City Greens on Disney Channel. I'm like, yeah. Like I've watched an episode or two and it's okay.
But
But
I think the main question that the storytellers had with this particular one was, what would make a person like join the Sith? And I think by showing the Sith with a profound sense of menace, but also a strange like caring to them, I think like they hit on all points. This feels like the prologue to a major series, and I want to see that major series. Like I want to see more of this.
this this felt the most Star Wars of every single episode. And the reason why is they really do understand that the evil that they're dealing with in all of Star Wars lore. Because right away you're watching these kids just trying to get out of this impoverished situation that they're in, working on this not sweatshop, but they're basically working on these mines as child labor,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get out of this desperate situation any way they can. And this one uh, protagonist, she goes off and she like takes her friends to this cave because she's learning they're going to go deal with this ghost at this cave, and you learn that it's to basically take the place of the Sith that's already in there. And so she finds a way to kill the Sith, and now she's so traumatized from basically what she's had to go through by herself. And then add that, and all of a sudden we see the the next Sith Master come down in this cool looking ship based on the animation that they had. Learning she's also voiced by Angelica Houston, who you and I grew up young kids watching the Witches movie, so and knowing that she's like can be scary, Adam's family mom, and she just said, "Okay, you did what you need to do." So add to the trauma of she's already taken a life, not finally understanding what she's done, and now add to the trauma that she's now being taken away from her friends. That this Sith Master, can I take my friends with me? No, and just straight up tells her no, and now she has to go leave her friends. And what we've seen from Anakin Skywalker in the movies, we know that like being taken away from these things is taxing, it's emotional, and that's what the dark side is built off of. And so this episode understood that better than any episode of realistically, and this is the main reason why I go back to what I said. This to me is the best Star Wars anything that's been put out there since Empire Strikes Back. This is better than any episode of Obi-Wan. It's better than any episode of Mandalorian. I would put this ahead of Rogue One. I would put this ahead of even the prequel trilogy. Even and I like Revenge of the Sith. I would put this ahead of all of that. It's certainly better than anything of uh, uh, the latest trilogy, even though there's parts I like of that one. But this episode, I don't know if you describe it this way. This episode is perfect.
Yeah, I would say so. This is if we are to, I would not give this season the 7 out of 7, the so good it redefines what good is, but certainly this episode deserves a 7. Like it is awe-inspiring with how much they packed in to a short amount of time and leave you wanting to see more. Like
Yeah.
I want a series where there's a time skip and we kind of go forward and see what these characters are doing, and maybe have a reconciliation, or maybe we don't. Maybe this is a tragedy. Who knows? But I want to see more of this. Like I said, if you had a limited budget and you could only give a series to one of these things, even though Journey to Darkhead is a full season of television crammed all into one, I've seen it at this point. This I haven't seen, and I want to see more of it.
Would you say, I mean, going back, you're a Star Wars fan too, and that's why I would love to hear like Daisy and Marlon's and Andy's perspective if we could get them to like even review this season one day. But that's further down the line. But being a Star Wars fan, does this episode feel the most Star Wars to you, like it did me? Or is there another episode that feels more Star Warsy?
I wouldn't say it feels more Star Wars to me. Like, probably the one that feels the most Star Wars, I would probably say, is Journey to Darkhead. Just because it feels like something that I've gotten before. This does not really feel like what Star Wars has given me before, so it feels like a new take, and it feels refreshing.
That's fair. More original than anything.
So
certainly out there. It was this was.
So yeah, obviously this is like the unequivocal number one. Let me bring back the key art here. Boop. And get to make it a little smaller again.
Actually, here's one question. Because this is a downer episode, do you think putting it at episode 2 was the perfect placement for it? Or do you think maybe it should have been placed more in the middle, or even like maybe you can't end with this, but maybe put it at episode 8 and end with like "I am your mother"?
What are you talking about? I'd end it. This I would put at the end. No, I like legitimately. If you want to end people on a good note, I would probably put this as like number 8 and "I am your mother" at 9. I think that this is not going to be outshone by anything out there. I would not put this first. I think that no. It sets your expectations too high if you put it first. But certainly I think it is probably not the best position where it is. I think you would put this kind of in the later half rather than the first half.
Like mood wise, I think it's fine following the Sith episode, because you're not clear whether she's a Sith or not in the first episode, and then it begins with this one. So then obviously it sets it much more clear and or starts with much more of a downer. But that means that again, that first episode of the Sith episode is probably not placed right either. Again, like, do you want to end it? Do you want to begin with somewhat of a lighter note on top of that one, like maybe start with that all song or whatever it's called, and then like again like ending with like kind of like what we're very WWE-ified when again wrestling reference, but leave the crowd leaving happy. You don't usually end WrestleMania with a heel winning. They have the last few years, but usually you leave the crowd walking out of there happy. Usually it's babyface territory. Let the babyface have the moment and then walk out, unless you're building to something else.
Yeah, if the only situation where I would probably legitimately say have this go at the end would be if you had like producers and everything that were so high on this that they said, we are legitimately giving this a series. So what we're going to do...
We both agree they should be.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have this end the series and then basically say, like, oh, by the way, coming, like, in the next 6 months, this is the series. Here's a trailer for it. I think that is effectively what the only situation where you would want this going on last.
And the good news, like, this whole series has been reviewed. I saw Season 2 got 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. I would concur with that. Largely, this is maybe not 98% is a little high based on like then a couple of the episodes. Like my bottom 3, I wouldn't put it 98%. I'd put them more around the 60 range. Like those bad episodes are like hate saying this. It's like a DC movie. They're entertaining, but they're still gonna leave you a little bit disappointed. But then the good gets so good that is like again, those top 3 episodes are better than God. This might be the best thing on Disney Plus to think about it.
Uh, as
I might
someone
put this ahead of a lot of MCU.
as someone who saw The Flash on Thursday, yeah.
Shut up.
There are there are legitimate moments in The Flash where you're like, "Hey, this is a pretty cool idea. This is pretty good." And then other moments where you're like, "What the fuck were you thinking? Why did you think that this was a good idea?"
The trailer made that movie look so cool. I see it tomorrow, and I want to like, because the trailer is so cool. It's like Man of Steel, and like I left Man of Steel like, God, that could be a good Superman movie. They missed a few things, but that was a good Superman movie. And then like a couple days later, you think about Man of Steel, it's like, God damn it, you're. It's like DC. Everything DC does, I want to like more, but then I start to think about it and I get angry. Outside of like the Nolan Batman trilogy, outside of Dark Knight Rises, which you could still look back and still find problems with, but like every time I look back at Man of Steel, Aquaman, now the Flash from what I'm hearing, Wonder Woman 1984, cool ideas, but just damn it, damn it, damn it.
Yeah,
But I also fall in the camp that Superman Returns is way underrated. I love Superman Returns.
I feel like I need to see it again in order to have a judgment on that. But aside the point, this isn't movie review Monday. This isn't anything where we're going to be talking about the Flash or anything. We're there, as I know, there's no movie review Monday. Sorry, folks. We're not going to review the Flash.
We don't have. Maybe one day when we have so many followers and people request it, then we can.
Yeah, we can.
But
stream on the regular.
Way down the line. That's on the big hope train that we're on. Right now.
Yep. Right now we're just screaming into the void. So ranking time. I think there's no question about number 1 and number 9, because number 1 is easily Screecher's Reach. Number 9 is easily Owl's Song. Like the duality of man, right there. In terms of my ranking, I'd probably say that. You know what? I'll give levity the benefit of the doubt here. I'd put I Am Your Mother as number 2. Journey to Darkhead as number 3, probably tied more with The Spy Dancer than one right after the other, but that's kind of going to be how they're going to be ranked. And then we get into that weird, like, lower middle, which is In the Stars, Bandits of Golok, and The Pit, where of the 3 of those, I'd put The Pit above all of them. But like, they're pretty close, is what it comes down to.
I would. I think I Am Your Mother. And I like Journey to Darkhead better than I Am Your Mother, but I Am Your Mother is a better told story.
I also forgot to place. I also forgot to place Sith, so Sith I will place below The Spy Dancer.
Sith I would probably put at number 8. You've convinced me The Pit is better than Sith, because again, the whole like master turning into dust after being hit by a yellow lightsaber just kind of, again, let me reiterate, almost every episode on here with the exception of episode 9 is probably better than anything that's in season 1, even the Sith episode. The Pit I would put ahead of anything in season 1. The only thing I didn't like about The Pit was being force sensitive at the end, because that to me just didn't, I don't think that added anything. So again, Journey to Darkhead, I'd agree with you. I Am Your Mother at 2, Journey to Darkhead at 3, even though I really like Journey to Darkhead a lot. 4, I would put In the Stars at 4, just because I think, again, it felt like a complete episode. It gave you everything you needed, plus the animation is really, really cool. Then I'd put Spy Dancer, um, followed by Bandits of Golak. No, take that back. Pit of ahead of Bandits of Golak. Um, Spy Dancer, Pit, Bandits of Golak, Sif, and All Song.
I like Lou going after your hand.
I know.
Nope.
You
No.
can see him jump.
So yeah, that
He's
is
very.
that is the general ranking of Star Wars Visions 2. It is good. It's really good.
Going to see it.
Yeah, overall, 7-star scale. So this is also stolen. This is stolen from Super Eye Patch Wolf. But 1 is completely insulting to my intelligence. 2 is like notably bad, but with maybe some redeeming qualities. 3 is effectively I did not feel robbed. 4 is like good with like very discernible bad qualities. 5 is good for the genre. 6 is exemplary for the genre, and 7 is so good that it has redefined what good is. And I think you're going to give this a 6, and I think I'm going to give this a 5.
I am going to give it a 6. Part of me wants to like thinks about higher because it redefines. It doesn't redefine Star Wars. It's not better than anything Star Wars has put out there, but it is really, really good. It's at least at a 5.5 to me. And as far as anime goes, this has been again because of the styles are so different from all over the place globally, and you have the CGI one, the claymation one, on top of the what feels like that those old textbook animation ones like you get in Screecher's Reach. Um, it's so beautiful all over the place aesthetically. I so to me it feels at least a 6 in terms of anime as well. So yeah, I mean to me at least a 5.5 if I'm being really really critical, but I would personally put it at a 6. I think you nailed what my prediction would be.
Yeah, awesome. So we if we continue this, I think Gundam the Origin should be next because we got you to watch Gundam previously with the OAFMS team. You did not like it. um, I think it is.
It was. I mean, it had moments. It's just the ending was. You were right that the ending just kills the entire thing. Like that last episode, they should have just ended it on the second to last episode because they bring in that last episode and then you're just like, I hate everybody on this cast.
They both die because it's a Romeo and Juliet story. Nope. You stupid motherfuckers.
Let's lead an episode by the least charismatic character, leading you through getting beaten up by children.
Yeah, so Gundam the Origin, to kind of build it up, is effectively your... It's kind of your Richard III story. You are following the villain as he power grabs his way to the top. In the meantime, it's sort of mixed with like this is the history of the 1-year war in Gundam, but the animation is very very good in it, so that is what you have to potentially look forward to. But yeah, we talked for like a solid hour and 20 minutes here.
Okay.
We did the DC animated movie. We stuck to our time. Hey, and legitimately, so Flashpoint Paradox is okay. Like, if we're talking about the good DC animated movies, the main issue I have with Flashpoint Paradox is Superman has such a tiny head. It's really weird.
Flashpoint Paradox better than this Flash movie. Damn it.
I am not sure. The reason is because the Flashpoint Paradox animated movie feels like it needs another 20 minutes to tell its full story. Like, it feels like not enough. The Flash movie feels like a jumbled Frankenstein mess of a movie that has been made over the course of 3 years by multiple studio executives who said this superhero movie is doing well, so let's bolt this onto it. And it is a cumbersome mess that barely works, but somehow it works at parts.
Did James Gunn have any involvement in this movie? Or...
I do not think so. I think it was already done, but I don't know. I mean, he said that it was good. I mean, that's his job to say it's good at this point. But I mean, Tom Cruise said it was good as well. That was a noted story, and I don't know what Tom Cruise saw, but
Tom Cruise just wants action. Tom Cruise just wants to do stunts in movies. That's why Mission Impossible is just one giant action scene now. Like Tom Cruise, if Tom Cruise could have been Vin Diesel in Fast and the Furious, I think that's like maybe a role he looks back on and just like, I could have been John Toretto.
But yeah, I think if we're sticking to the monthly on this, we'll do Gundam the Origin next. I don't know if you want to do... What would you rather do? Gundam the Origin is pretty dense. It's literally like 3 movies together. Like, I think the first one's like an hour long. Yeah, so we can just do the whole thing. Whatever. It's going to be a long episode.
The only other question is, will this be made into podcast form too? Like, will this be back on
I can see.
Or will this strictly be a...
So I know that I can still upload to the Animesplaining thing. It's obviously going to be in a YouTube format. But Anchor does allow for video podcasts because it's just Spotify. So I will try. I will see. But otherwise it will be up on the Anthony Pecoraro YouTube channel thing. It's also going to be in the VODs here. So it's going to be in places. So it will be available. Worst comes to worst, you can just plug it into Audacity, take the audio from it, and plug that into Spotify if you really want to.
I know.
The old way that I did Fantasy Bookers.
Someone's complaining.
Yep.
What?
I will let you get to your needy cat, and I will end the stream here and get it situated. So guess we'll see you next month.
All right. Thanks, Tony.
Yep.